Hello everyone, it's Rodney Strong here from the Underground Bookstore. We are interviewing today another one of our authors, one of our younger authors, but not the youngest author involved with the Underground Bookstore, but certainly done extremely well for her first book coming out already. It puts a lot of us older authors to shame, and that is Denika Mead. Denika, welcome.
Hello.
So you have, first off, I guess, how are you surviving lockdown?
Yeah, well, everything's definitely very different, but I've got lots of time to write, so that's awesome.
Excellent, excellent. And so you have, your first book came out last year?
Yeah,
and
in
that
October.
Was, yep, so that was Royal Orchid or Royal Orchid? Does it have an S on the end? I can't quite remember. It does?
No, yeah, Royal Orchid, the Death Hunters.
Royal Orchid, the Death Hunters. So, can you tell us a little bit about the book and a little bit about how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so Royal Orchid, the Death Hunters is about a girl called Ivy, and she falls through a portal into an icy wasteland, and she fights a dragon and a magician with her pet Kia and Snowmouse, and they fight to stop the world from plunging into disaster. So it was published in October last year, and it was a finalist in the Youth Laureate competition in 2018. So that's what made me think maybe I can try to self-publish.
Right. Well done. And so what's the target audience for the book?
It's 8 to 15, but I've had adults read it, I've had 6-year-olds read it, so it works for a very wide range. Anyone who loves fantasy, really.
Excellent. And is this intended to be a standalone, or is it part of a series?
It is the first in a series. The prequel was released on the 3rd of April, so that is very new. And I'm working on the second book, The Ghost Warriors, at the moment. That is due to be released later this year.
Wow, okay, excellent. And so where did the idea come from originally?
So I've got this penguin bookmark, and I was looking at it, and it's so complex and beautiful, and I thought, what would happen if someone fell in, and what would they find? What kind of people would live there? How would they survive in such an icy wasteland? And the rest of the story kind of came from that. Great.
And so, as I said at the start, you are one of our younger authors. So how old were you when your book was published?
15. Yeah, I turned 16 in December.
So it's quite young to be publishing books. So is this something that you have wanted to do for a while?
Yeah, I've always loved writing. It was always my dream to become a published author. Yeah, I've been writing stories and creating characters for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. So do you have a drawer full of stories that haven't been completed yet, or?
I've got several drafts, lots of ideas scrolled down. Yeah, many more stories to come.
Are they all sort of same sort of genres, or?
Yeah, lots of fantasy.
All across the board. Lots of fantasy.
Yeah.
So do you read a lot of fantasy?
I do read a lot of fantasy. I love His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan. I love The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Cool. And so have you been doing any training in terms of the writing, or are you sort of self-teaching as you go?
Yeah, I go to a few writing classes, which is so helpful. My mentors was so supportive throughout the whole process.
And what is the, I guess, how did you find the process of writing this book from start to finish? So when you started writing the book, did you think I'm going to self-publish it, or was that the plan all along, or did that kind of evolve as you went?
So I always wanted to publish something, but I didn't necessarily think when I started it that I would publish it. It wasn't until I heard of the Youth Laureate competition that I thought, well, I'll try to get it published, because the award for winning the youth laureate competition was to get your book published. So I thought, wouldn't that be amazing? And when I became a finalist, I thought, well, it's a good story. I'm going to try to self-publish.
Right. And so how did you find the self-publishing process? Because it can be quite daunting, learning things from scratch.
Yeah, well, taken together, everything was very daunting. It seemed a very large process, and I didn't know a lot about it. But yeah, my mentors were there to step me through everything, and I tried to look at like one step at a time. Like, now I need to find an editor. Now I need a proofreader. I need a cover designer. Looking at them individually was really, really helpful and made it really manageable.
And so for, I guess, advice for other authors your age, you know, in terms of going through that process, how did you approach looking for those, you know, you mentioned editors and proofreaders and things like that. So how did you find an editor, for example?
I don't remember how I found an editor, but I remember for the cover designer, I was recommended one by an author I know. It was really helpful. That's something I definitely recommend, is to find other authors, find other people who are doing that and have been through the process, because it's really helpful.
And so what do your friends think of you being a published author?
They're very impressed. They have read, like, lots of my friends have read the book, and they're very excited for the next one.
Okay. A lot of fantasy series can be quite long in terms of number of books or the size of books. So do you have an idea of how many books you want to be in your series?
Yes, I'm think it's going to be a trilogy, and along with the prequel. So 4 books in all, but it's a trilogy with a prequel.
And so have you planned those 3 stories out? I mean, obviously the first one's out already, but have you planned out the next 2?
Yeah, so the second one is in editing. I've written it all, and it's going well. The third book, I do have a plan, yes.
And so was there anything that you found particularly tricky about, you know, maintaining characters across 3 books, making sure that you don't have any continuity issues with characters and things like that? Was that a bit trickier?
Yeah, it was. It was quite difficult to. It's quite difficult to remember, like, that I've set rules. I didn't know how many rules I'd set when I published Death Hunters. I realized there was lots of rules with magic, particularly, that I'd set, and then when I get to planning the second book, I've got to remember what I've done in the first.
And so did you find any mistakes in the second and third that you made because of the rules that you set?
Yeah, as I read it through the first time, I did find a couple of plot holes, based on things that I've said. Even just passing comments I've made in the first book have thrown a couple of things out in the second, but that's all been cleared up pretty much now, which is really good.
And so when you sat down to write your first book, you had an idea of the fact that you wanted it to be a trilogy, and that your characters were going to go on this journey.
Yeah.
Did anything change in terms of your process or your idea for how the story would evolve once you'd actually written and published the first book? Or is it still along the same sort of course?
Well, I think I think I've proven to myself that I can do it. So everything seems like a little bit easier. So it's moving a bit faster now, because I've got an idea what I need to do. So it's been made easier, definitely, having one book published.
Yeah. And so what about your family? So you're in lockdown at the moment. Your family been quite supportive?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, really supportive. I've got lots of time to write every day, which is awesome.
And so you're homeschooled, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, for the last 4 years, I think.
Right. And so lockdown probably has a different meaning for you than it does for a lot of people, because your school was at home anyway. So has it sort of been business as usual in terms of schoolwork and things as well?
Yeah, kind of. So I'm definitely more. I'm set up because I've got my computer. I can write. I've got my schoolwork, but it's still very different because lots of my classes are outside of home. So I've got like a drama class, writing classes. So it is still quite different, but I have my schoolwork which I can carry on with.
Right. Great. And so what, probably last question, what, any advice for anybody your age that's thinking of writing a story or thinking of writing a book? Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, never give up would be my piece of advice, and also find other writers to support you, because it is a big process and it is difficult. But if you find other writers, it makes it so much easier.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Denika. So good luck with the next book,
Thank you.
or the next two books. Have you thought, probably one more thing that sprang to mind, have you thought beyond the trilogy? Are there other ideas that are bubbling away, or?
Yes, yeah, I've got a few drafts, some edited manuscripts ready to go once I've finished Royal Orchid. So I won't be bored.
Right. Excellent. Well, good luck for the future, and keep on writing.
Thank you.